Going live now. Hold your best now. I'm coming back. Gosh.
Yeah, you're live.
We are live. Hello, Ricky. Thanks for joining me on this discussion today. Discussion of parent alienation. Right. What do you have to say about that? Just that one.
Let's start off with the definition, or what some of the definition is. From what I remember, it's when roughly when one parent is not is attempting to um, turn a child against the other parent. That's one of the things that they do, and also trying to take away even the advantage of being able to have a relationship with their other parent, whichever that might be. Do you understand? And in some cases, um, one parent is usually very angry. Do you understand? Something has happened in the relationship. There's a split, whether it be in legal terms a divorce, or even just a marital split of some sort, or non-marital even. And then all of a sudden the parent just becomes really aggressive to the other one. Uh, you know really ultimately it's turning the child against each other, or the other parent. That's really what happens. But obviously it's not the child isn't, the child is part of that problem, but it's the parents that are actually causing the issue.
Yeah. In the legal terms, what in the search engine it says parent alienation needs to be recognised as a form of child abuse and a form
Yeah.
of recognised psychiatric harm punishable within criminal justice system. Children do
Right.
not have the power to assert their rights through the court system. Their parents are ultimately their voice and their safe haven. That
Yeah.
word, safe
Yeah.
haven. But it doesn't turn out like that, does it? Because although parents are fighting amongst the children for the right to be a parent, and this is where the aggression comes into it,
Mm.
where parents are turning one again and once one and oh god, I can't get words out. The
One
amount
against
of
the other.
statements that
Yeah.
we actually can see. Oh,
Mm.
I've got a new girlfriend, and because I've got a new girlfriend, she won't allow me to
Mm.
see the child anymore. That's a
Mm-hmm.
classic example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yet she would have a new boyfriend. So one rule
Mm.
for one household and one rule for another, but not the
Mm-hmm.
best interest of what the children are. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's missing, isn't it? What is in the best interest of children? Rick, I'm a child that I'm a child. I've been in
Mm.
childcare. I've been through the care system.
Mm.
The damage it does
Mm-hmm.
when parents can't get their act together. I also got to the point where I had to fight for my own child in court
Mm.
against my against his grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not a nice, pleasant place to go down the courts, but it is what is in best interest of children. And nowadays, you've got too much blame going on one another, but rightly so, there is blame, but it's not fizzled out in the way it should be constructed when
Mm.
people are breaking up in relationships.
Mm.
The kids becomes a prized possession and a weapon,
Mm.
and even used. Let's talk about even CSA is used in this
Mm.
instance as a weapon also. And you've got
Mm.
parents taking out cases before the child is even born.
Mm.
And you think, can you do that? And they say, yeah. And that causes a whole heap of problems for fathers as well, trying to earn a wage. And then when you've got individuals, and also I'm talking from a woman's point of view, all right? And
Mm.
you can talk from your own point of view. But when you've got parents out there trying to struggle to make ends meet, pay their bills, pay their rent, pay the child support, What's not taken in consideration is that no matter what, that child support has to be paid. But the CSA don't give a damn if the parent hasn't got a shelter, can't afford the rent because the money is being taken out left, right, and centre, and they got their stats wrong, because that's heard of as well, where they're taking almost the rent money, and therefore when they take the rent money, then prime example, oh, he's worthless, he hasn't even got a shelter. I mean, how can he have the children overnight because he can't have shelter? It's because people are putting on that claim for, you will pay the money over the children's welfare. And so therefore, I have seen many injustices and watched fathers struggle. I've heard from mothers, but mothers get more of an interest than the fathers do. They get more of a way to rehabilitate than a father does. And everything is lined on, put on the line and said, if you do this, and if you do this, you could possibly get your child. But it's unfair for the fathers sometimes. That's what I see. Completely unfair. And the children have to be co-parented responsible. There's needs to be responsibility to the children, because all the squabbling is causing self-harming children, bedwetting. They're now forming patterns, and I want every parent to listen. I'm a mum, please take some. Listen, every incident that you have with the opponent of that child, that child forms unhealthy coping strategies very, very quickly, very early on. And some of those you will not see. They'll be behind closed doors when you're not looking. And they can come in a way of food. They can come in a way of self-mutilation. They can come in a way of turning into a bully, as well as being bullied. Bedwetting, as I said, all of that, and unhealthy coping strategies. For me, parents, I was 13 years old, and there are children as young as 6 years old wanting to end their life because of this parental alienation. Vicky, what do you think of what I've just said?
Yeah, just before we went live, we were talking a little bit about it, and we were talking about the legal aspects. You see, the issue is like, although funnily enough, it has been given a title within maybe the book of various different diagnoses and symptoms, you understand, that maybe psychologists use, or the care industry uses. Like, for instance, the title is parental alienation syndrome. Yeah. Okay, but that's in the medical profession, or let's say in the care profession. The issue comes now when it comes to court. It's very hard the court doesn't want to encroach, or the court doesn't want to be pointing fingers and trying to judge each parent. So the thing is, it's very hard to actually state whether it's a crime in court. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Because once you start to actually, unless it's a clear violation that parents are behaving in a particular type of way, do you understand? Then obviously, that falls within the judicial, the court's, power to be able to determine whether it's a crime or not. But the thing is, it's like, sometimes it's like, just because two parents might have an argument, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden it becomes a crime, you see? And this is the issue that the court, the judge, the CPS, anyone else that is involved, social workers, et cetera, they don't really want to get too caught up with, because if they start, presenting information, let's say, that starts making the parent into a criminal, then the parent's obviously representation, lawyer, Mackenzie friend, whoever they use, is going to definitely, rebuttal that, is going to definitely start to attack that. Now, you spoke about your personal scenario. I'm going to share with you what happened in one of my divorces. I've been happily divorced twice, I think. Do you understand? Not going to do it a third time, that's for sure. But anyway, you know, on the second divorce, it was very interesting because the individual that I was so-called attached to uh, lied in court. They actually lied in court about, you know, me, you know, not being a good father, basically. Now there was, you know, I think she had an impression from the beginning that she would just walk into court being a female, you know, just be listened to, and you know everything would be plain sailing, and she could possibly lie. The problem was she failed to understand that especially the British ruling court system is not going to be like any other court system in the world. Yeah, she wasn't necessarily British, but that's irrelevant right now. Yeah, what was relevant is that she thought that she could make something up. What she actually made up was that I was not a very good father, and you know, I wouldn't really interact with the children, and you know, I was rude to them, and this, that, and the other. All of a sudden, the CPS, which was right at the side of the judge presiding, interrupted her and stated, "Well, that's not true." Yeah. So this cross examination didn't come from the judge. This cross examination didn't come from my representative, my lawyers, which I had three at the time, and she only had one that looked like Boris. But anyway, that's a different thing. Um, it came from the CPS. So obviously she done her homework, and she obviously he must have interviewed her before the court case. Uh, didn't interview me. However, you know, at the end of the day, it was unnecessary because what she stated about me in court was a lie. And how did it come out to be a lie? Well, she then interrupted and said, "Well, that's not true. You left this country and you went back to Uganda for 2 weeks and left the children with the father." Now, at that point, when that was said, she was like in total shock, to such a degree that her lawyer had to turn around to her and, you know, he went as red as a tomato and actually explained that, you know, why did she say what she just said, to the point that there had to be a recess. Do you understand? The whole court proceedings had to stop. And outside, I overheard her lawyer state to her that she cannot continue to just make up allegations against me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Against the father, which at the time, I wanted to quickly go to the toilet. And as I was passing, I even said to her in front of her lawyer, I said to her, if you lie continuously from the time we go back into court or any further, they will take the children away from both of us. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Which amazingly enough, I couldn't believe what was happening. Her lawyer actually agreed with me. Do you understand? Now, you know, you didn't have to be too bright or even a lawyer to agree with that. But, you know, a lot of parents, I think they need to, some of them are very, very clever. Yeah. Some of them, they come to court and they put on a big act of I am the victim and I'm the one that's always being discriminated and always being attacked and always this and always that. And they fail to recognize that the courts are not there to psychoanalyze them. Yeah. The courts are there to be presented the proof, the evidence, and the facts only, so they can make a legal assessment. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And this is where I think a lot of parents don't seem to understand the court system and end up, and I'm not suggesting for one second that the courts do not get in the way. Sometimes they do. But, you know, I think a lot of parents, they try to blame the court system. And the reality of it is not, if you come to court and say whatever you want to say and think that it's just going to be accepted in a legal, you know, setting, then, you know, you're very much mistaken. Because when, for instance, social workers, or when, for instance, other people that care for a child's welfare, the CPS or anyone else, any other group or independent body comes in, they're going to be looking at things not necessarily through mainly a legal way, like the courts are going to be looking at that. In other words, what I'm going to say is, if you play the victim in a courtroom, then you can play you can be the best act. You can win an award. You understand? You can win the BAFTA award and the golden whatever, but the Oscars. You understand, for playing your part to pretend that you're a victim. Ultimately, what's going to be presented in court is facts, evidence, and proof, and that is because the court system wants to see that. Now, anything else that's added to that or presented to that is going to be from, obviously, other organizations that deals with the welfare care of the child's upbringing, etc., which is not necessarily to do with the legal ramifications. You understand? It's got to do with rather the psychological evaluation and stuff like that of the parent as well as the child. So the thing is like, most parents, they seem to fail to understand that the courtroom is not the psychologist, the counselor, the therapist, or anything else. The courtroom just really is going to look at the legal aspects and obviously your attitude. Do you understand? When you're in the court, if you have, for instance, a very short temper, or you sparked off at any type of thing, then obviously you're going to be held in contempt. They can't hold you because you are, you've just shown a sign of parental alienation or anything like that. Do you understand? So the thing is, for me, is like, I think what parents play, some parents they think they're very clever, and they play on this because they know that when they're in court, the court can't necessarily point fingers at them and call them, um, call them out as if they are actually, fitting that description, parent alienation syndrome. Only a qualified person that's in the care industry, in the whether it be a psychiatrist or whatever, can actually point that out, maybe to the courts. Do you see what I'm trying to say? But ultimately, the courts are not interested 100% in that, unless, as I said to you before, the child is suffering psychological and also physical distress. Do you understand? In my case, as I said, she had to go back into court, my ex, and the proceedings went smoother because she stopped the lies. She stopped the acting. And what was really, really sad is that after that, she seemed to have nothing else to say, but yet she was like, really going off on one, in the beginning, when obviously the court gave her the opportunity to say something. You know what? I think that the ultimate problem with parental alienation syndrome is that it's a syndrome. You don't know whether or not you have it until someone actually, and until you either get help, or until somebody actually from the care profession, a so-called professional, actually, points it out. And sometimes it's not parental alienation. Sometimes you're just angry. Sometimes you're just really so frustrated that you're out of control to such a degree that it's not necessarily you have parental alienation syndrome. It's you just don't know how to handle yourself. You see what I'm trying to say?
You mean malicious? There is a terminology called malicious mother syndrome.
Right.
So that's a terminology. I'll break that down in a second. But this parent alienation is a word. It's not defining. Again, it's like using the word mental health, isn't it? Mental health.
Yeah.
Again, underneath, you see, you use the word parent alienation when they break down the underlying issue of parent alienation, just like breaking down the underlying issue of mental health. Here we have is abuse. And again, you see, they like to label that word abuse with different kinds of labels. But the bottom line is abuse of power, abuse of mistrust, and they're not looking at it. What is in the best? Some people think, it's in the best interest. He's shown me nastiness. I don't know what he's going to do to my children. You laid down and made a baby with these people. Okay, sometimes things that happened by accident. That's happened to me. Okay, but you laid down and made a baby, maybe planned or unplanned. You dedicated, oh, we're going to work well, we're happy ever after. You felt that was the right person for you. You chose your partner. You chose to give birth to a baby, happy, this, that, and the other. And suddenly, this is where the problems come into it, particularly in culture. Culture differences, okay? And when they're good enough to have a baby, go for all of this, yeah, buy me the best pram, babe, and this, that, and the other, you know. But as soon as the baby's born, it becomes of, you'll never be able to talk to my child like that. My child. What about our child? People don't use the word our in a conversation. It's normally, will you babysit? What do you mean with you babysit? Why do you have to ask someone to babysit their own child? Gotta go watch the kids. Yeah, but when you have to say, will you babysit for me? That's something you go and get a babysitter. You see, look at the words we're using: power, control, manipulation. And then when something doesn't go right, they're the worst scum on the earth. And so, oh, they're a bad parent, they don't want nothing to do with me. Listen, there are people out there that are going to stand their ground. They will not put themselves through the legal system to be dictated by a man that probably doesn't have children or does have children. Okay? Now, I have to say, culturally different. There's a lot of black men that won't fight for their children because of principles. And the principles are, why should I have, particularly somebody of a different culture, telling me how I could raise my pick-me, as they call it, child, right? So, and I get that point. I get the point, because you are being dictated how your child should be used within the system of court, which is about money, but how your child should be raised. Is it fair to just give somebody a letter from a child? How much more damage is that going to do, giving a child just a single letter from the parent, rather than having to see a parent, you know?
I'm going to say, I'm going to cut you. I'm going to say something about the cultural aspects.
Yes, please.
I keep saying this to people. Every time you get a representative, I don't care if it's a Mackenzie friend or I don't care if it's a qualified bar registered lawyer, you instruct the lawyer. You instruct that Mackenzie friend. Yeah. Some lawyers and some Mackenzies, because of their experience or their certifications or whatever qualifications, whatever you want to call it, think that they can tell you everything and anything and you just have to follow. Yeah. No, it doesn't work out like that. Yeah. If you ever follow a lawyer, they will never represent you and they will get paid. Yeah. That's how it really works. But in reality, before you go to court, you instruct your lawyer, and anything that you don't know in regards to law, he or she is there to tell you. Do you see what I'm trying to say? But a lot of us, we don't do that because I'm going to really break it down to such a simple way everybody will understand it, hopefully. If something happens to your car, you don't go to a candy store. Okay, you go to a motor mechanics. Why do you go to a motor mechanics? Because he or she has the full knowledge and understanding of obviously how the working of a car is. Now, you can stand there, wait, and you can ask questions if you want, but you're going to probably get in the way. And at the end of the day, if you get in the way, he might or she might make mistakes. So at the end of the day, the best thing you can do with a lawyer is he or she usually does give you a space, you understand, where you can actually ask as many questions as you want. You know, he or she might present to you. You first actually have to present what's going on so he can understand or she can understand what the hell is going on. So then he can determine whether or not he can or she can take the case. And then after that, he will then say to you, do you have any questions or would you like to ask me anything? Now, even if he doesn't or she doesn't, that's irrelevant. You have got to understand that when you go for legal representation of any sort, yeah, it's like we all shout out about our rights. You know, I have rights, we have rights. But the thing is, it's like, okay, but the thing is, do you know how to present your rights in a particular type of way? Do you see what
in
I'm
the
trying to
right
say?
fashion, without the degrading treatment, without the blame game. And this is the
Without screaming and
problem.
shouting and all the rest of it. You see
That's
what I'm
what you
trying to say?
see wrong when you look at people's paperwork. That's what you see wrong is he did this, she's doing that. Look, they don't want to know about that. She's got her own to contend with. If she's raising a child, she's already been dictated how she's supposed to be raising a child because she's got them on board. But you, as the, let's say, prime minister, example, father, you haven't got no legal representation. You've got no support. How do you write your words? And
Well,
this is what
I
we're
was
talking
sorry.
about.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to finish off by saying,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah, no, that's all right. I was going to finish off by saying, if it's true that you not dictate to your lawyer what is going to go down or what you want or whatever, but if you are instructing your lawyer on your behalf on how things you would like to uh, you know, certain things you would like to happen, then, when you have the space or when you have the communication with the lawyer, then make sure that you state that if there's any disproportionate comments or on or something that you feel might be racist or racial, yeah, racially motivated from the court system, that your lawyer comes in and steps in immediately. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Mm.
Because you just asked me a question about or you rather were talking about misrepresenting families that come from different cultures. Well, I don't care whether your lawyer is as white as snow. If you instruct your lawyer to look out for any form of racial tension that the court could actually, what do you call it, implement or push into the proceedings, then your white as snow lawyer has to stand up according to all the races or all the racial laws that is in power.
Yes, you do. And you can't just use the word discriminate, he's discriminating against me, etc. You got to have
No.
to break down and show how that is true to be on the
Yeah,
balance of
racial inequality,
probability.
racial disproportion, racial stereotypes, racial, profiling, all types of things. If we know police do this on a regular basis, racial profiling and all these other type of things, racial inequality and racial stereotypes, what makes you think that in a court of law a judge can't do it? What makes you think that a CPS can't do it? What makes you think that another lawyer could not do that? And you understand? So the thing is that, like I said to you, if you don't instruct your lawyer, you see, lawyers that are dealing with family, with children, with the abuse of a child, or with this particular specific topic, which is parental alienation syndrome. If your lawyer, if you don't instruct your lawyer that you have to look out for those type of things, as well as the racial tension that can occur maybe in the proceedings, do you understand? And to deal with it instantly, do you understand? Then at the end of the day, you know what? Your lawyer might overlook, or your lawyer might allow the proceedings to carry on in a particular type of fashion. And you might be sitting there thinking, it's like, hold on. So it's okay for a judge, it's okay for this person, this social worker, this individual to say whatever the hell they want. And then what happens is that you get angry because obviously, you feel that your culture and your traditions and your customs or whatever it might be is being overlooked, is being overstepped even. Do you understand? And even ignored in some cases. And then what do? You really, instead of being angry at the lawyer that you have, you understand, you start projecting to the other party, the other parent, or even the court, the judge himself or herself. You see what I'm trying to say? So we need to understand before we step into any courtroom with and if you're suffering or you're a sufferer of parental alienation syndrome, do you understand? Before you step in there, make sure that you get yourself checked out. Make sure that you understand what is happening to you. Yeah. I know it's very hard to put anger that you have for another parent, do you understand, to one side. I know how hard that is. You understand? But you know what? If you can somehow think about what the effects are going to be on the child, over your so-called adult, you understand, tensions and anger and all this and all this pented up feelings that you have for the other adult. Do you understand? And recognize, like you said in the beginning, when we talked about the definition, that the child cannot represent itself in court. The parents are meant to be the representatives, and if the parents are not representing the child in court, then that's when you're going to have social services, that's when you're going to have social workers, that's when you're going to have other people stepping in. And then before you know it, there could be the next hearing that you'll be under would be a hearing of whether or not you can even have the child.
And this is the thing, they don't just, and I want people to think that the court is not always necessarily the issue. Look, you should try everything possible. Mediation, go to charities that deal with family conflict and rehabilitation on that as well, because for the
sometimes the court issue that out. You see what I'm trying to say?
But they give you their own. They don't. They do. You can go and find yours, but make sure that's written up that of what work that you've done for them or they've done for you.
Of course. But like in regards to culture, you know what I'm saying? If you feel that the judge is just putting you on some white person over to some white organization or predominantly white organization, then you have the right to ask a judge, can you actually,
Yeah, and I think that was a really good word to use. Please, can you show me how diversity is included in this court document, particularly when you have mixed race children? And I have to say, let's use another word. No, I'm going to use that word. That's the word I'd use anyway, because I'm mixed race, all right? So that's the way you can identify yourselves the way you want to. But when you've got children that are torn into two different worlds, yes, we have a human being here, but they are subjected to different stereotypes and stigma within the community as they grow, and the child is going to be lost if he cannot understand.
Well, the child becomes confused, because at the end of the day, especially if it's disproportionate, that, for instance, the father, say he is from, let's say, an African country, or and the mother is obviously not from a white, predominantly, let's say, European country, then the child becomes confused, because at the end of the day, usually what happens in some cases, not all, because we don't want to always feel that the statistics that we're looking at usually are, manipulated and crunched up and thrown out by also what the media is talking about. You understand? And we all know the media is controlled. So the thing is, for me, personally speaking, the way I look at it is like a child will always, as far as I can see, and as far as when I was in particular professions within the care field, a child will always gravitate to particular types of ethnical customs and traditions, more so than maybe the other parent. So, for instance, we're talking about mixed ethnicity. Let me be very specific in regards to an African and a European. This is what I found with African and European mixed ethnicity. I found that usually that child, either it goes from one extreme, is predominantly just, very British, very English, very European, let's use some stereotypes, very fish and chips and, cottony or whatever, do you understand? Sorry, I have to use those old stereotypes because most people understand what I'm talking about when I use that. Or they go from the other extreme, they become, so it's like, instead of fish and chips, it's like ackee and swordfish and, whatever. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And reggae music 24/7 or whatever. Again, these are very bad stereotypes I'm using. But, the bigger picture here, you understand, is I have always noticed that the part of the conflict, part of this parental syndrome conflict, is to do with also, the culture, even the religious belief system. You know what I'm saying?
Even the postcode wars. Sorry, you're from this.
Well, all type of things. Yeah, all type of things. All type. The environment, but we're talking about culture here. We're talking about, a child of mixed ethnicity cannot change their color, cannot change their hair, cannot change certain types of things. Okay, maybe some children might get away with being accepted more so by other Europeans, But then all of a sudden, when they start growing their hair, for instance, you understand, or when they start eating a particular type of thing, eventually something happens where other people start to recognize or see certain types of things. You see what I'm trying to say? Now, we as parents, as so-called adults that meant to have so-called, common sense, which is not common no more, we don't see that. All we see, it's just, something that my child is going to automatically do because I am the adult and I will influence my child to eat, again, using the really crappy stereotypes, ackee and swordfish or fish and chips. You see what I'm trying to say? But the thing is, it's like, but that to us is just food, maybe. That to us is just preference, maybe, in our taste, in our background, in our culture, whatever. But what is it to the child? Do you see what I'm trying to say? How is that child going to react? What is that child going to see? All of a sudden, it's like with a child, you got to think childlike sometimes. When I talk to a child, I try to think as a child. Yeah, I don't try to talk to a child as if I'm a psychologist. If I was, in doing a counseling session, or you got to break down the language. You got to talk to them and interact with them and get to know them, because just like an adult, I wouldn't like a total stranger just coming up to me and saying, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" You see what I'm trying to say? Or starting to use some really odd type of conversation. You see what I'm trying to say? So the thing is, it's like, I think parents, again, fail to recognize that. I think the court system is also trying to keep up, but they're still failing in that area. And I think this is the reason why also now more so than ever before, because I remember a long time ago, the court system never really used to have other members from the care profession actually sitting in the courtroom. Yeah, they would always, in the old days, even some movies, you see that if the clinical psychologist was needed, for instance, to psychologically evaluate someone, they would be invited into the court. You understand? So they weren't actually sitting as part of the court.
Paperwork now. Everything is paperwork.
Well, as well. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, we're talking about, parental alienation. Some parents themselves have been alienated. Some parents themselves don't understand how to parent because the way they have been parented.
And that's right. And they probably want to protect, and we have to talk about some of these people have been damaged, and I use that word,
big time.
Some of these parents have been abused. So therefore they naturally want to protect, and they can be overprotective because of the abuse that they've experienced themselves. So it might not be with the partner who they're having confrontation with, but
it could have been someone that they were around years ago.
Makes people act so drastic, and sometimes they forget the goodness of that once parent, and they home in on all the, oh wow, he called me this and he called me that, and they forget what's in the best interest of the child then. What's the plan for the future of your children? Let's cut your crap away, and let's cut your crap away with the blame game. You're at this situation. It's like a bloody divorce. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it as it is. It's like a divorce, and maybe you've never got married, but at the end of the day, you separate in something. You're separating that parent responsibility. But in actual fact, you have a duty of care to co-parent responsible. Because that child will ask questions.
But some parents don't know what parental responsibility is, though.
I am going to say,
because they've been traumatized.
I do, and I'm going to put this out. I'm a mum, Mick, and I'm for parents having their children, okay, not finding every possible avenue to help that children, unless it's a really seriously an offence that is unforgivable. Do you understand? But for me, I am all about co-parent. And let me just say this: who challenges the opponent in court about a child that you both laid down to have. I'm going to say this: if you get full custody of your children and the parent is only prohibited to have a letter or maybe no contact at all, I'm going to say this: good luck to you with those children throughout the rest of that, because that then is if they come out well, then I'm going to pat you on the back. But if these kids come out with more problems because you decided you couldn't put down your differences. You're the one, your back garden is being looked into once again, because that will be a reflection on you. If you're raising children single-handedly, that's a reflection on you. Trust me, I didn't have to go to court to be a single mother myself and raise children, but know how to co-parent responsible with somebody that may not even be in the country anymore. But I gave my children access. Keep them safe. We can do that. And nowadays, you know what? I think it's especially when they're in lockdown. And we'll go into this modern day world now, that you can supervise. And this is a tip for you guys. Supervise your visits by video call. You can just press record. Anything untowards, then you get somebody else to look over that and see if it's untowards, whether it's in your imagination, you're overprotective, or you're being plain old bloody well ignorant. Well, I'm telling you something. When you take a child away from its parents, you withhold child, and you keep that child grounded down into a pack, and he's got nowhere to come. And when he's ridiculed, you see, don't just stop there at the parent. When that child goes to school and they're having a conversation with the other children, yeah, my dad this, my dad that, and that child's like this, I'm not allowed to see my dad. Why? Because the court says my dad's a bad dad, or my mum's a bad mum because she did this, she made one mistake. How do they get to put it right? And so, yeah, and then see, it can be exaggerated, but we make mistakes as parents because of something we've learned in the past, and we're trying to unlearn what we've ever been learned. And I have to say that the schools were subject to that damn discipline as well, because they used to beat us with canes, they used to hit us with the slippers.
Of course. The system is part of it as well.
So it's only a few years later when you want to say, no, you can't do that anymore. And I get it. You can't hit your children, all right? You shouldn't. You've got to find another way to control that aggression and educate in a better way. For instance, Ricky, I put on there earlier the video, I echoed a video, perhaps you had the video and I found the video and echoed over the video. There was a young lady shaving off a kid's head because let's talk about that. Let's talk about the discipline, because this stepmother shaved a young boy's head. He was no more than 13 years old, publicly on Facebook live, and was going to stream it out to all the rest of his accounts and everything else to humiliate him and degrade him because he got caught smoking weed.
Well, I mean, that video, by the way, is nearly, I think, 2 years old. It's not yet yesterday. However, it just shows, the reason why I'm saying that is because it shows you how it's been circulating since then. Now, that child is not 12 years old anymore. Yeah. So for him to see that now, as he's progressed, as he's obviously evolved, hopefully, and he hasn't regressed, you understand? It's society as a whole doesn't seem to understand the damage that can cause. You see what I'm trying to say? That's number one. Number two, so it's not just the court systems that you want to blame if you want to blame somebody. It's not just your partner that if you want to blame them. It's also the environment, the society, the legislation, the so-called people that are in so-called power, that personally I feel that the majority are puppets now rather than politicians. You understand? The bills, the rules, the regulations, you talked about modern times. Okay, wearing a mask, how you're now harassed or looked upon if you don't have one, the child, in other words, like I said, going back to the society, the child now not only has two parents that are alienating each other, you understand, and the child in the process, but now the child is also having to adhere according to rules and regulations because of this so-called virus that, seems to mutate, very conveniently every time the government wants to introduce more so-called laws to protect you.
Let us off the lockdown, yeah? And then let's just say at the end of the day, doesn't this affect that lockdown? Affecting again the children, especially those that are co-parent. It's affecting the children once again. We call that
big time.
Alienation.
But you see, this is where now they're trying to, creating these new laws with and around parenting, because they want more control. Basically, if they have more control, if the courts have more control, then at the end of the day, the parent will just sit there, and the courts will be able to make all the decisions and the choices. A lot of judges actually don't agree with that. A lot of judges don't like that. A lot of judges actually get other people to actually, write to MPs and other type of individuals, you understand, that are part of the so-called legal system and the changes within that legal system. But another thing I've noticed about parental alienation is that before you become a parent, I think that you should talk about, the possibility of if you do get together and you happen to have a so-called accident. You understand? I think that not only just have a plan, but I think that you need to both talk about how you have been treated by your exes. I remember a long time ago, I went on a date and I dared to ask this lady, you know what I'm saying, which I really, after that, I made sure that I asked over the phone before I wasted my bloody energy and actually met people that, are explosive. I remember asking her just about her ex, and she went into a fit, literally. Now, the thing is, it's like that showed me instantly there and then that there is no way that this woman is prepared or even ready for any type of relationship with a male or with anyone. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the thing is, for me, I ended up that quite quickly. But the thing is, it's like, the reason why I'm using that example is because I think a lot of us, before just running into a relationship, find out about how the other person has been treated. Find out about, just because just because you was raised by a single mother or a single father relationship, that doesn't mean you're a mess. You understand? Because I've met you have great figureheads, like, we're talking about culture. We have Malcolm X was raised by a single parent mother. You understand? Lots of other individuals were. Do you understand? The greatest singers, the greatest artists, the greatest, political minds, etc., etc. That's not the point. The point is, there's no stories I find of the mothers of those men or women. What traumas did they go through? What fears did they have? What anxieties did they have? You see, when we meet someone for the first time, it's all roses and a fake smile and a fake, persona. Yeah, we don't want to present a broken character or mashed down personality, obviously, because we're not going to go on a date, or we're not going to go on anything wanting to actually reveal what's happened to us in our life journey. But actually, if you think that you are important and you love yourself enough, then your life journey should be your story also. And you should be able to present your story to other people. Yeah. Now, the reason why I'm saying all this, by the way, is if you are one of those individuals that might be actually not understanding that you probably are suffering from, parental alienation syndrome, and you possibly could, and you feel that maybe that this is what you are suffering from, and there are diagnoses. You understand? Self-diagnosis is good, but you've got to go to get a professional diagnosis at some point. You understand? But again, as I said before, there's so many levels to this. Do you understand? Because, like I said in the beginning, the courts don't want to necessarily point fingers and start saying it's criminal what you're doing to your child. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Because then there's going to be a floodgate of other charges that's going to go along with that, and then it's going to be complicating everything. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
It'll be people like Cass and teachers, and that will be making up those reports. So,
Right.
you think about it, they become your witnesses as well as. You see, the thing about the system is that they are a witness for all, no matter what. When a piece of paper is written down there, sometimes people need to defend that piece of paper, but that piece of paper is a representation of just what's going on. And then you've got all these people involved in this one, in a child. And that's an awful lot of people and an awful lot of judgment. And each time that somebody keeps pulling these kids back to court because they want to fight for the child. I mean, that says something, and somebody's not giving up on their child. That says, I want to be a parent, because
sadly, I'm gonna cut you, and I'm gonna say this sadly. When I was working in particular, in particular areas in the care industry, I was amazed to actually see that there was individuals, men and women, that really was fighting hard to get, access, even just access to their child.
Yeah.
And actually, as soon as they eventually got it, yeah, years later, sometimes, they messed it all up. Yeah, they messed it all up. So for me, the lesson I've learned about that is not to look at an individual and how hard they're fighting, to get what they want, but actually look at the individual's behavior towards, do they know their child? Do they understand their child? Have they grown with their child? You understand? You see, for me, there's baby daddies and there's fathers. Okay, a baby daddy can drag their child, can go to the baby mother. Yeah, and I'm just using these terms very loosely. A baby daddy can go to their baby mummy, have the baby mummy dress the child, and then drag them to a playground, like you would walk a dog to the park, and then go right back and then present the child to the mother and say that, you know what, oh yeah, the child really enjoyed himself. A father will not be doing that. A father will will sort out a particular time that's convenient for the mother, yeah, and the mother will actually maybe give a particular time as well. Yeah, be accommodating to each other, and then when he picks up the child would run up to him and embrace him, and vice versa, and maybe walk not just to the playground, but maybe somewhere else, maybe have a pizza or whatever it might be. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And talk to his child, and not groom his child. Do you understand what I'm saying? Talk to his child. And when I say groom, I'm not talking about anything sexual here. You understand? Because grooming does not mean just sex or anything sexual. You understand?
Yeah.
But grooming the child into thinking that I'm the best daddy in the world. It's like, listen, every child, especially a younger child, is always going to look at their parent, whether it be their mother or father, as their superhero, super mother, whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? So the thing is, for me, it's like, you know what? These are all type of factors that when I started to recognize that it's not how hard the parent is fighting, but whether or not they have a natural bond and relationship with their children. That is more what I would be looking for, rather than I'm just fighting. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Because then that parent might then be suffering from parental alienation syndrome.
You can call it other words, revenge syndrome.
Oh yeah, big time.
Because I mean, parent alienation may be a big of a. Sometimes some people.
It's a professional word used by professionals. You understand?
Yeah, but
kind
for
of.
For me, it's the kids that suffer. Full stop.
Yeah.
And I think kids.
100%.
If you can be co-parent somewhere along the line, and maybe somebody hasn't got the right parenting skills. But if you're going to ridicule them, you're showing a parent anyway, full stop. No, you're not a good enough role model. No, you're a waste of a space. If you're doing that in front of the kids, that's not a good role model anyway. You're not actually going to help that person who made the problem.
Yeah, if you're doing that to the mother, or you're doing that to the father, let alone with the child present, it's a form of immaturity. You know what I'm saying? It's just a real bad form of immaturity. And whatever, sometimes in life, I've had to tell men, grown men, yeah, I've had to say to them while I'm sitting down over a pint listening to, oh, she's done this and she's done that and blah, 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 blah. I've had to say to them, you know what? You haven't even noticed this, but for the last half an hour or an hour, I've let you talk about your problem, your issue, and this woman and that woman and all the rest of it. But let me ask you two questions. One, did you ever love this woman? Did you ever actually really wanted to lie down with this woman and have a child with her? Do you understand what I'm saying? Or was it just a leg over, or were you pissed at the time? Yeah. Yeah. And number two, why is this individual taking up all your energy, all your life,
And time away from
Yeah.
your children.
And time away, yeah, and you said, and the only form of conversation that you seem to be having with your friends is about your private personal life. You
Yeah.
understand? I'm not suggesting for 1 second you can't talk to your friends or family or whatever about whatever you want to let out sometimes, but you know what, I think that I had to say to him, you know what you need to do? If she's that annoying, if she's that much of a problem, you understand, then you might need to just take a break. Stop contacting her every single second. Stop blasting her every single moment. Stop
Giving
forcing
the
her to.
evidence of harassment by phone. Come up with a plan instead of the harassment, because that's what goes
Right,
against you. And every
right.
time these people are texting and they, yeah, but when I see my son, if the woman says, if there's a plan on the table, here's a prime example, plan on the table, there's arrangements, you're picking up the child at 2 o'clock, okay, it's been agreed, all of a sudden she texts, can't see, there's been a change of plan, can we rearrange it? Is there a valid reason that should have been a change of plan? Oh, well, I'm calling to me mum's. That's not showing that you're putting the child first.
No.
That's saying I've got to fit around your schedule. You're not
Yeah.
working on a plan together. And I think there's a lot of people that you don't even consider the fact that maybe a man does work 7 days a week to
Hmm.
give you that maintenance. And so when you're
Well,
saying,
nowadays
I
he
want
has
you to
to.
have him every weekend,
Mm,
so you can go out
mm,
every weekend. I just find that, is it a weekend part-time fathers and mothers that you're looking for nowadays?
yeah.
Because co-parenting means people shouldn't have to get to the point where they're calling their kids once a week. They should be able to call their kids every day. Hey, how you doing? How's it going? Or
I
ask the
think.
kids. Ask the
Yeah.
kids how often. I mean, I've done this once. I mean, I've got the booklet there. How often would you want to see your father if you had the option to see your father more so than ever? They chose once a month. Why? That age, friends, and
Mm,
having communication over telephone and stuff like that. But the
mm,
reason why they chose that, they said, because mum lets me get away with everything.
mm, mm,
And so therefore, this is where you've got mothers bringing children. I mean, I'm not going to put mothers down. Mothers can do a fine job, and so can fathers. Okay,
mm,
equality here. And I think it is the child, spare a thought for those children, full stop. This
mm,
money, he's paying me, mate. And your friends are going to be the worst. They're going to be filling and fueling yourself with stuff that they didn't do for themselves. So they're going to like,
mm,
girlfriend, if I was you, I would do this. This is what I done to my partner.
mm,
Yeah, where did it
mm,
get you today? So you're listening to your friends tell you about the maintenance scheme, the child benefit scheme. Trust me, they're not even connected with the department that it's actually written on. And it's just a side hustle to embroil somebody into, give me a check for doing your paperwork. I'll give you a percentage. I'll rob him and make him suffer for the rest of his life, or her, if it's a woman, because it's extortion. Let me tell you something. Tell me something. Why would a newborn baby or a child of, if the government gives a single adult an allowance to live on, bearing in mind we have to travel and get a job and look for work and everything else, then why is the maintenance more money than the adult sometimes? Okay, for a baby perhaps that not even quite walking yet or talking yet. And so you know that the budget of their food is this. Plus, on top of that, you've got child support, which comes with your what's the word? We get that through our birth certificate. We're entitled to the privilege of child support. Okay, and so the women come off much better than men, and the men are suffering. I want mums to understand that sometimes that is the father's roof that may be jeopardizing, and then you have nowhere for the child to come and stay. If you're going to be disproportionate about the amount of maintenance, and that's something that, sorry, Rick, and then that's something that seems to be a bit of a game, money over a child's life. I was given £5 a month for one of my children, £5 a month, and I thought, you know what? You could have kept that money, because I would have rather that person had a relationship with my son than than throw money at the situation. Because I, as a single mother, would have to explain to my son why the father's absent. So what do you do there? Do you belittle the father, or do you be reasonable and honest? Because you were young when you had children. You've lost contact with their children or mothers the other side of the world. You know what I mean? So therefore, what do you do? Do you belittle the parent that is no longer here or not providing for your child? Or do you just say that sometimes responsibility, some just people just don't want it yet, or they're not capable of it yet, or there's another underlying issue of maybe they don't want to get close to a child because something drastic happened to them in their past with their own parents. So it's easy sometimes to avoid complications with mother. I'm going to use that mother baby mama drama. It's easier just to shut it off, walk away, because if the baby mama or father is going to keep giving each other aggravation, then it brings depression on. And when it brings depression on, it is your children that are left with the person that you are arguing with. And it puts extra heat, extra pressure on that parent that's raising that child. Yes, you're going to say, yeah, well, let me help you. But if you're going to create crap, sometimes what you do is you create resentment. And then here we go, down the wrong order. You hate me just as much as you kick my dad out. You don't like me either. And here we go. The child can't understand just why they've been brought in the middle of the crossfire. Do you want to say anything final on this? I think we can talk. My consideration is, please spare a thought for the children, because it doesn't just stop at this court process that you're going through. It continues and continues into their adulthood, where then they end up with shitty relationships, because if you are not a good role model for them, then don't expect them to have good role models in the future, because you're showing them the way. So be dignified.
Yeah.
That's my passion for a child today, Rick.
Yeah. I mean, the other day I had to say to, I'm not, going off subject for just a second, I'm not necessarily an anti-vaxxer. What if you want to, jab yourself up with all type of cocktail, that's up to you. But for me personally speaking, you've got to make your own choices, your own decisions, your own, when you are of an adult status, do you understand? You got to use this. If you don't use this and you expect someone else to use it, and you always make assumptions and presumptions of your so-called partner, and then your assumptions and presumptions never get met, do you understand? That's not their fault. That's you making all these assumptions and presumptions. But I wanted to say this: the courts, they, as I said to you, they look at facts, evidence, and proof. Yeah. Everybody else that's part of that court system is presenting particular types of things. One of the things that they're going to present, if you are a malicious parent of any type, whether you're a narcissistic parent or any other type of parent, in this case, as we are talking about a parent that you yourself maybe has been alienated, if you keep malicious records, whether they be text messages or email logs or anything like that, believe you me, they can be found. Do you understand? If an investigation happens where the court will put a judgment to investigate you, you understand, they will be found. If the judges at any point in time within the proceedings has the right to actually give you an interview. Do you understand? So don't think that it's just your partner that's going to be interviewed, because I've noticed a lot of men think that they've gotten scot-free. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then suddenly the judge, the proceedings can last as long as the judge can extend them for. Do you understand what I'm saying? Obviously
now,
not.
I know of a particular, there's been an incident where I've known someone's case to drag on to 3, 4, 5 years. Now that's
easily
3, 4, 5 years of the children that are getting pulled into
dragged up
meetings, left, right, and center, and investigated like there's some specimen in lab rat. I'm sorry, I get so angry when I think about these children, because it's them that are going to suffer when people can't put down their differences.
Yeah. In some cases, I'm just going to quickly interject. In some cases, you can actually not have the child present, and obviously have other people look after your children, and you just can come to court by yourself. So it's not a issue, because I like to make sure that whatever comes out of my mouth, it doesn't cause anxiety. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, just to let you know that if you are going through a divorce, if you're going through friction, if you're going through whatever with your children, you don't have to drag them to court. Even the child support services can actually arrange that if you've got no family, for instance, or if you've got no other individual that can look after your children. But for me, yeah. But go ahead.
One of the things we didn't point out is, I know we're equally saying this, like co-parent responsible, but we also got to point out that sometimes we can have these children, and later on, somewhere along the line, one of the partners changes. And then when it changes, it could be domestic violence, or it could be mental health. One of the things that we ask you to do, even if you are co-parent or not together anymore, is teach the education on mental health and understanding depression. What is causing that depression? And you can understand if people are miserable, getting thrown into court left, right, and centre. Listen, mate, this is only a father or a mother ain't going to give up on the child if they're truthful in what they're saying. And they will admit to their faults if they're doing something wrong, of course that. But they're asking for guidance and structure and a plan. And it is that plan that is best for mum and best for dad and best for the child. It is a plan of a future. Where are we going? I.e., what homework should we be talking about? What's our kids' education? What should we import in our kids? What do we think about? I know about free choices, but what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? How should we educate our children together? Because that's what the understanding was when you were laid down and make a baby, you were going to be the best parents ever. So for me, if you want to get divorced or if you're in domestic violence, you still got to think about the child that you brought in that has a natural right to its parents, unless the parents done something awfully dreadful wrong, like child abuse, and I'm talking about sexual child abuse as well as mental abuse as well. And you've got to prove that mental abuse first of all right, but definitely the physical abuse, that's something that never should ever be tolerated. And again, know who you're laying down with, do your own background checks. And again, unfortunately, there are people that have hidden secrets, and it comes out later, Rick, and others or parents that actually have the scientific evidence that something happened, have a right to defend their children in not being judged for wanting to keep the child away from that. But they do have a lot of explaining to do to that child later on, and protect that child through school. And imagine my dad's a paedophile. You don't want to hear things like that from a child. They're going to be ridiculed. It must be painful. So we've got to educate and understand these children. Oh, what's it like for children? My dad's in prison. What's it doing to the children? How are we going to help the children? There's got to be a plan. And that's the final note for me. Plan ahead. Plan wisely. Be sensible. Yeah.
I want to finish off by saying this. There's 10 signs to look out for. We're talking about parental alienation. Your former spouse tells you that the children, about children that he had from a previous divorce or something like that. Now, when he tells you about that, or she tells you about that, then you've got to also ask very difficult questions. That how did that leave you? What what type of trauma did that cause, or whatever? Did you overcome that? How did you cope with that? How did you deal with that? You understand? And also, if you start making false allegations against your partner, it's if you say things like it was domestic violence that he was putting on me or something like that, it's very easy to keep saying things like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the reality of it is it never happened. Okay. When it goes to court, if you say things like that, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. And as I said before, your children might end up not actually being taken away from one parent or the other, but both of you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I had myself in a position to say one time to an ex of mine, and I fled the country. Trust me, I fled the country because, again, in a situation where somebody just wants to be bitter because they want a point score.
Yeah.
They don't understand the complications that You think that if I'm a bad parent, then they're going to investigate you and look at you. If you know that you're lying, then know that you're right. Rick. They don't just try and take the child from me, they try and take the child from you. And then where is that child in the
Yeah,
system?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that risk.
yeah.
Wow.
Other signs are, if body language, for instance, you understand what I'm saying? Is they're always like, giving you negative body language. If they're talking about you in a very even evil, I would say, or negative way in front of the children. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And if your children, if they sometimes, parents tend to provoke the children to get angry at the other parent for no reason. Do you understand?
And get
But that's because
information
they
as
want to
well.
fuel that child to hate the other parent. Do you understand?
Absolutely.
And also trying to make and the opposite. I call it the bipolar opposite of trying to make that child feel guilty for actually loving the other parent and stuff like that. You see what I'm trying to say? So once you start as an adult doing these type of things, then you could be actually suffering from, parental alienation syndrome. Do you understand? As I said before, get checked out, go to counseling, go to therapy, ultimately, this is what I wanted to finish off, yeah, and say is this: while you're caught up with you, me, myself, and I, yeah, if you're religious, I've heard religious people say, you know, uh, my family, I feel like my family's being cursed, or there's been a curse put on my family. Well, guess what? Don't continue putting the curse on your children. Do you understand? Break the curse. Do you understand? Be parents that think maybe my life hasn't been perfect or great, or I feel cursed. But you know what? You don't have to give birth to a child and continue that curse from your lineage into the child's lineage. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's all I got to say.
Just want to point out one more thing because
Yeah.
your conversation triggered off something else for me, and I thought about step parents. And the reason why I thought about step parents, or those wanting to fill someone's boots, you are not that parent. You might be
No, you'll never be
your
that.
father's passed away, okay. You have an
Yeah.
active duty to install good memories and yes, build great relationships with a child. A child is a gift, not your
Yeah.
possession. But I think there's too many people out there that try to fill the places of a child's father or mother that is not there any longer, and then try and play daddy with it, and then start implementing rules. You can't see your child, but yet you're out there on a Sunday afternoon walking, holding hands with next man that ain't the child's father, bringing in
Right.
another man's role model. And you see, you're
Yeah. Yeah.
bringing in a role model here. And therefore, at the end of the day, what is that person? What background do you know on that? How quick do you bring another man into these children, boyfriend and
Yeah.
girlfriend? And
It's
no
very
woman,
difficult.
no, this is what happens to me. Okay, this is
Mm,
a true
mm,
reflection. I was
mm,
seeing an individual one time, and he was having
mm,
baby mama drama stuff, right? Okay, I didn't have anything to do with the children, okay? Nothing
mm,
to do with the children because that's something I agreed. I think there should be a big, long length of time before you get yourself involved with somebody else's
mm.
child, okay? But
100%.
but the woman put regulations on him. You can't see your child if you're as long as you're dating that person or you're doing
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
doing that. What has their private life got to do with you? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I can understand if somebody's living, you want to do an investigation of what that person's like. Did they
Of
have
course.
children
Of
taken
course.
away from them? I've never had
Of
any
course.
children taken away from me. I've raised children and then grandchildren. But for the woman
Mm,
to turn around and say, dictate, all that is control. And there's so much
mm,
that goes on in the community is you can't do it, and then they're hypocritical because they're doing it. And actually,
mm.
even babe, can you get Michael's dinner, please? Get his breakfast. Yeah. His dad's no, he's not. His dad's not coming today. He's a what? This blah blah blah, and it's all done in front of the child. Yeah, but baby,
Mm,
you're a good dad, you are. So we have a baby together. Pattern happens again, and so
mm,
therefore, at the end of the day, women think they can find a replacement. Listen, a replacement that you can't replace a child's love. You can't for
mm,
what the questions are going to be coming back later on. Who are you? Why didn't you do that? Children will ask those questions. They have a missing element of their heritage and they need to know their heritage. And on
mm.
that note, you have a responsibility. You brought a child into this world, and that took two. And don't give me the
Yeah.
turkey base of crap either, all right? Because that still comes from somewhere else as well. So
Yeah.
please
Yeah.
don't give me that. And again, you see, even on the national newspaper that I saw, three
Mm,
three parents, all male, raising a child. Controversy. For me,
mm,
somebody said, wow, isn't that child well and truly loved? And I think at the end of the day, protection over your child first and foremost. And I'm going to leave that on that note right there. Thank you for tuning in to me and Jay Ricky today, and we're going to come back with more topics because we always talk, but it's nice to be on here listening from a male point of view as well as a female point of view. So thank you very much.
No problem. And to all to everybody watching, you know what? Be balanced. Try and be balanced.
Yeah, try and be balanced.